So I'm going to launch, if I can find it here. Where did it go? No, don't do this to me. I've used this before. No way. Like I used it yesterday and it's licensed. That's one of those moments. So when you open up Final Cut, and I've got Final Cut Express because it's the one that works with my camera. Window. Okay. If you open up something and it looks kind of wacky, I just do a window, arrange, standard. That way, if something has happened, if I've accidentally clicked one of these buttons and gotten rid of something, I'm able to put things back. Very often, these little things over here at the side end up disappearing. The Premiere windows look similar. Now that you see this bouncing along, you can see up the top, oh, this is a new project. So the first thing it does, Premiere wants me to make a project. So my new project video would be a timecode display, audio, leave it at audio samples. So this is my capture and this is my format. So this is where when you're opening up a project, and depending how the Final Cut upstairs is set on the computer, it could automatically ask you to set it up as well, depending how it has been left. Mine just opened, as opposed to saying, oh, you're making a new movie, what do you want to do? You don't have a camera connected. Sometimes it will open, and with a camera connected, sometimes not. So this one says, what is my capture format and what is the name of the movie? So my capture format, for the time being, I'll just say I'm capturing it in DV, and I'll give the name of the movie Saturday, because it is. The other thing, too, is the location of where you want the files stored. So if you have a laptop that's running out of space and you're not really keen on storing all of your files on the laptop, or if you're working on a school computer that might have something and you want to store it onto your own USB or your own little hard drive, you can set that as your scratch disk, and that's where all of your information will go. So this is where in Premiere you get into, let's pick what kind of movie we're doing. And so because I was picking DV, it automatically defaults to, these are your choices if you've picked DV. So if I picked HDV, then I would have a choice of a few other things, or there might be a mismatch, at which point you would fix that later. So I'm just going to say at this point, I'll just set it up for widescreen, 48 kilohertz sound, and then you're going here and you see, yep, we've got a 16 by 9. It's called interlaced. We could get really technical here. There's two kinds of ways that they make pictures. Interlaced is the older method, and if you see an I at the end of a format, it'll be like 1080i or 1080p. I is interlaced, my camera does interlaced. The way that they create the film is with sets of pixels that are slightly offset. So if you look at people's home movies or movies that people make, and show at school, if they look a bit jagged on the edges, where you get the edges of something that look kind of jagged, it means that they've got an interlaced format, and that's why you see that sort of jig-jag back and forth. My DSLR is a progressive scan, and it is not interlaced, and so it's just a picture. Everything's lined up. So this is just recognizing that it's from an interlaced format. 29.97 frames a second. There you can see we're dealing with a frame size of 720 by 480 and rectangular pixels. So we're gonna start with our sequence 1 and we're gonna hit OK. So the purpose in here, let's see our spinning beach ball of death. It says, don't have all of this open at once. There we go. Window, works. Yeah, it's the trial. I'm continuing my 30-day trial. If you run out of your 30-day trial before your project is finished, which could be a problem, but not anymore now that they have the cloud, you can actually purchase the software month to month on the cloud. So if it's worth like $25 to pass a course, I'd spend the $25 and extend my software without having to buy it. So my workspace, I'm in regular editing mode. And if you're used to having CS5, I could have editing mode as in CS5. Yeah, because that's what I have on my PC. At home, I have CS5, so I'm going to put it into that one. But you guys all have CS6, so that's me. So in CS6, your sequences are all going down here. All of your files are going down here. This is your timeline over here. I'm going to just make this a little shorter. And I'm going to put these in list view because you get a whole bunch of stuff here. You don't want it to take up too much space. It defaults to the icon view, which means if you've got like 2 things in there, great. If you've got 20 objects, you have to scroll down. So I always like to put them in the list view, and then you can label them. It gives you your frame rate, and it talks a little bit about your media start. So you're starting with a sequence. There's the name of our file, which is Saturday Project. And this is your timeline here. So you can see that over here we have a timeline. We've got video 1, 2, 3, and audio 1, 2, 3 over here. Yep. Oh, sure. Yeah, it's kind of dark, isn't it? So my screen was looking great. Yeah, I had Fred do the video tutorial for me last year for my class, and it was really difficult because this is so there. I can just look at all those lovely glowing apples. Is that better? So you can see over here we use the list view in order to get this into list view, so we can have our sequence, a label, the frame rate is showing that's what is the project is set for, and then here's your timeline, and this is the time of the film kind of code here. But I don't have anything in this project yet. So I will go back to Final Cut, and the difference, the sequences are up here, so all of my data is up here. I've got my 2 video lines here, my 4 audio lines here, and you can choose at the bottom how big you want these to be. So I've got a pathetically small screen here, so I'm going to pick a smaller one so I get more of these lines showing, and I'm going to pull that down because typically I'm using more layers of video than I am of audio. And then up here, this is where we'll bring some your effects tabs back here. And so then you would pull down all of your effects. So if you want to do any video transitions, they're in here. If you want dissolves, they're in here. Underline cross dissolve because it's the most favorite one. So that's where all of the transitions are, and then all of your stuff for the yet untitled project, because it didn't ask me for one yet, is here. So when you, and then these are the other where your sequence is shown. So your sequence, when you're playing your sequence, it'll show in this window. And then when you're modifying your clips or your audio would be modified there. That's the audio lines. You've got filters here, which you would have to drag in. I don't usually bother, but motion is what you might want to be playing with here for your clips. So if you want your clips to get larger, if you want them to be change their opacity, all of that kind of stuff gets changed in there. Over here, you choose your cursor type. So mostly the cursor type is going to be that arrow, because you just want to pick things. There's two other pieces over here. This is snap, or not snap. Excuse me, that's the snap tool. I usually keep both of those on for snap, because what happens if you're getting really busy, if you start to bring something into the timeline, two pictures together or two clips together, and you don't snap them together, you will get the teeniest little break in between, and so as you're going along, all of a sudden there'll be a black space. And if you try to pull everything along to fill up that black space, you're going to screw up everything down the line. So you want to make sure that you don't have any little inadvertent black spaces in between. So what I'm going to do is open up a few examples to give you a better idea based on some projects that are and hopefully these all let's go back. So this is telling me that some of my files are offline, which doesn't surprise me. So this is a project that I put together just to do the demo. So I'll explain a little bit about a whole bunch of the things. So these are all, I've imported a whole bunch of material. So I've imported some bits from a video camera. I've imported some photographs. Obviously, anything with a red line through it is something that's gone offline. So there's and there's an audio as well. So all of that is just dragged and dropped onto the timeline. So what you'll see when we go through, sorry, I don't think we have any audio there, so you're just going to have to suffer through the talking heads through my piece here. You tap on the space bar. Oops. First of all, you have to highlight the window that you want to work on, which in this one is more difficult to see because it's all gray, but at least you can see it on the wall. But you tap on the window to bring it active, and then if you tap on the space bar, it works. So there you can see on the top right, it's a 4x3 format.
The underground station or that one over there?
Putting in a series of
Here, what the how are you going to do this if you don't know?
I clips that are associated with the corresponding number of lines down here.
You could ride this all day.
Whatever's on top is what's reading. It's very literal.
God intervened, truthful as enough, so beautiful.
So what you can do is you can stack things, you can add most of the things, you can change their opacity, you can fade them, you put drop shadows on, so that's a drop shadow, and you can take multiple things. So you can take one image and you can give it some motion, you can put it on a track, so that you can move have it move from one corner to another, or just fade. You can make the page, you can add words on it, all of that is basic and fast. And so you hit the space bar and you stop. So what, if you were to look at highlight what this one was happening here, if we go into motion, then it will start to tell you, this is where you would start to determine what you were doing to that particular image. So what I have, if you stretch out that window, and as I say, this is why it's really nice if you got a big screen, what I was doing with anything that something, it came onto the screen and then it either shrunk or it faded or a transition happened to it. You set all of that, what we call keyframes. And so the keyframe is set by, so you would take your timeline here, wherever you want it happening. You can see it up there, and you can see it down here, so you know where that's sort of corresponding in the film. And so if you want to add something, and you want to set it in an out point for that action to start, you can set the keyframe. So here I have a keyframe set there, but I could set another keyframe here if I wanted to for scale. So if I want the scale to start at that point, I would set a keyframe at that point, and then the scale, there's a number here for the scale, which says, in this case, it's 6 or 6% because it's starting really, really small. So you could start it at, say, 10 if you wanted to, and hit enter, and it would change that to 10%. So then you would go to the next part in the timeline where you wanted the next one to change, or if I hit one that was existing already, then I could change that one, say it's gone 97%, say I wanted it to go to, it's not letting me do it, it's frozen. Well, there we go, it's blue, it'll do it. So if I wanted it to be, say, 150%, then I could make it go really huge. So it would then go much larger than what I've asked it to do. So anything that you want to do, whether you want to rotate it, center it, anchor it, crop it, distort it, change its opacity, drop a shadow, all of these things that are listed here, you can keyframe it so that you can start it to happen at one spot, and then keyframing just means that where you set the next point, it's a little bit like doing Flash. You don't have to animate the whole thing. You just give it, I want it to start off this small in this spot. I want it to end up this big in that spot, and it just interpolates in between. So keyframes are a really fast way to do that, and I don't want to say that. I changed a whole bunch of examples yesterday that don't seem to be showing up. Okay, we'll try this one. So this is something that was done for a movie by B.J. Smith, who did my course a couple of years back. He did a bunch of stuff he shot at Walsh's. And it's not showing up. I have the wrong sequence showing here. Oh, the red lines are always bad because that means it has to render. And rendering takes time. that's really mean because I got all these all ready yesterday and I sat there and I rendered all of them so that they would. They'd be ready to go. No. Okay, there they are. Sometimes you kind of wonder what if you're. Yes, I'll register it later. Okay, so this is again, you can see the sequence. You can add it. You can do a file new sequence if you need a new sequence. Add a new sequence. So this is sequence 3. This is a drive-through window. So we'll just see if this one actually works. Maybe not. Oh, I think my there we go. I had stretched out my timeline so that I could do the keyframes. So then I lost my window that was actually looking at something. Oh, I wanted to talk about these blue lines here. You go to View. View. I always like to show the image and wireframe. So you can see an image with a wireframe. There's a little number in the middle. And that's really handy because what you can do with that is you can take it and you can pick it up as a handle and move things. So it actually shows where your center lines are. If you want to do any motion which is based on moving the center point of something, you can drag it from its center point, and that way you're moving it around. You know where the center point is, so you can actually do that numerically. So I always tend to show image and wireframe. And the other thing I like to do is I like to show my title safe area. So let's click that and get rid of that. Now, title safe area, and I had a poor student do a whole video project one year where she had all sorts of words going all over the screen. She didn't have title safe area on. Now, it's not so bad with current television screens, but if you go to anything that's an older TV screen, it cuts off the outside of your movie. So you'll be looking at something on your computer and you go, wow, that's really great, and you got all these words and all sorts of detail that's at the perimeter. You burn a DVD and you go to show somebody on their TV screen and you go, crap, you know, like the words are cut off at the outside. So the inside turquoise line here is for like really old TVs, and then sort of old TVs, and then the outside is what you think you're getting and what you are seeing on your computer screen. So you are best, if you're using any text or anything that's really specific, not to have it out at the fringes because it could very well get cut off. So when you're putting any text or things in, bear in mind that the inner one is the safe zone as far as your music goes. So if we look at the way this is working, he's got a PSD that he made that has his driver's window on. And then he took some, so that's on top. So he put a PSD in there with a cutout of the window so that when he put the driving along the highway and behind, it looks like he's driving along the highway and behind, even though if he had really done that through the car window, it would have been this shaky, 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 you know, bouncing around over all the bumps. So this way you get that kind of more slick looking cutout with, and again, just pretty straightforward layering, that the layering is in behind. Does that make sense? So you just put one directly on top of the other. So this one, he broke out a series of triangles, because what he did in another shot was he has pictures of a whole bunch of sequences of pool tables, which are all trapezoidal in perspective. And so he has these pool tables that he shot, and he has them rotating around, so that they kind of make this anti-gravity. People are shooting pool on the ceiling and on the walls, kind of with the balls. So he had a series of masks that he made out of this PSD. So you can see that he's got all of the layers here. And so these are going to be going across on top of another set of sequences of pictures of pool tables, so that they're going to be masking out, so that he can take an actual movie that's a rectangular movie and have these black trapezoids then go on top of that triangular movie. So that was used in conjunction to create this. So he has the pool tables moving, but what he did with this little bit of video was to have, at the same time, he tracked those other trapezoids so that they blocked out the rest of Walshy's. So he didn't actually change the movie. He didn't make the movie trapezoidal, but he made a mask that tracked over it, so that when it's playing, you can see people coming in and out of the spaces in between, and shooting the balls around, to create this kind of a very strange. It's probably not normally like that at Walshy's, I don't think. And then another thing is another example of transitions. So what he was doing here for his thesis presentation was just a whole series of inspirational words. And so each one of them was put on its own timeline, with a dissolve, that a crossfade. One of the things that you'll find when you do when you're using stills, you can put a transition onto a still very easily. If you're putting a transition onto a video clip, and if you're used to using something like iMovie, in iMovie you just put two pieces together, you pop a transition in between, and it automatically eats up a little bit of the video either side. In Final Cut, it doesn't assume that it can eat up the video. So if you put two bits of video together in Final Cut, it will it won't give you a transition, because it won't know what it can eat. So I will show you how you will modify it so that you can allow it to eat. Where is everything? Window. Arrange. Standard. Where did everything go? Don't go away. There we go. See, I hadn't clicked on the I'll open it again. Just so it says, ask me if I want to register it again or something. There we go. In the preferences, and every software has preferences, user preferences I have set here, which will set, they automatically opened up when I opened up Premiere, but when you set up your preferences here, it's for general editing. You've got 10 levels of undo. I asked for it to prompt for settings on a new project, which it doesn't seem to be doing. Show my tooltips, yes. Bring all windows to the front on activation, so that's why I could close it and open it and my windows would come back. If you're working on something all the time, you can just have it open the last project on application launch. I don't necessarily like it to do that. And I don't necessarily like it to autosave. Now, most things in life you should autosave, but sometimes in a video, you don't necessarily want it to autosave and autosave over what you just decided you didn't really want to do. So it's up to you about autosave. Editing. If you're going to be bringing in on a new project a whole bunch of still images, when you bring in still images, it has a still frame automatic duration. The automatic duration in Final Cut is 10 seconds. That is really long for a still. The thing with a JPEG, you don't have to worry about its length because it's an image. If you want to play a JPEG for 1 second or if you want to play a JPEG for an hour, it doesn't matter. You can set it, you can stretch it on the timeline to make it longer or make it shorter. You can't do that to a video. If a video you roll in to make it shorter, then it will crop on the timeline, but you can only stretch it out as long as it exists. So if you want to alter that 10 seconds, or if you're bringing in a slideshow and you just want to do bang, 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 bang with all of the images very quickly and you don't want them for 10 seconds, so you don't have to go on each and every single one of them and change it. You can set it at that point if you want to do that kind of a slideshow. Timeline options, it automatically gives you 2 video and 4 audio. I could set that to be 8 video. You can easily, as soon as you start adding more things on top, it automatically will spit out more video tracks. And I don't usually mess around with my render control, so that's where you would set that. So if you want to bring things in for your project, if you want to import files, you go to Import Files, or you can bring in a whole folder full of stuff. So if I wanted to bring in some files, wherever I might have something. So I'm usually pretty good at leaving crap on my desktop. So we'll look in my desktop for some files. Oh, look at images. If I want to bring in some files, I highlight them, I hit choose, and the files are in. If I move the files on my desktop, those files aren't there anymore. Now this has been automatically set to 10-second duration. So the way that you would make a sequence is you're simply going to be taking that and putting it on the timeline. Now you can see there's 2 kinds of arrows. There's an arrow that's pushing off to the side, and there's an arrow that's pushing down. Okay, if I push the arrow to the down, it's going to just snap to the timeline. If I were to bring another one here, say a different one, and put it here, and it's pushing to the side, and I let go, it's going to push whatever I pushed on top of it to the side, as opposed to, and Control Z works here too, as opposed to if I just pushed it and it had the down arrow, and I let go, it stays. So if I was playing these, they're probably very similar, so I'm playing this one along for however long, and then it switches very quickly to the next one. If I want to take it and shorten it, because I didn't like how long it was, I can just drag it in. Because I've got snapping on, as soon as it goes over top of here, it goes, oh wow, that's lining up, maybe you want to do that. So it's snapping it together. So sometimes you might want snapping on, and sometimes if you don't really want it to do that, you could turn the snapping off. Likewise, we could move that if I want that there, and then if I would rather have had that down here, I can just move it, and again it's snapping. If I want to add a transition between those two, it's pretty easy to go to Effects, go to a video transition. I'm going to pick a dissolve. I'm going to pick a cross dissolve. You simply highlight it, drag it on top. You can see it's kind of overlapping both of them. and I have a cross dissolve. If I want to render, as soon as I see that little bit of red there, it needs rendering, I go sequence, and this is always hit and miss, render, needs render, and it doesn't do anything. And so I go sequence, render all, and it's also being kind of pissy, render the selection, let's select it. Okay. You really should name your piece before you do anything to it. So now that's gone from, you can't see, it's actually purple as opposed to green, which means it's a piece that's been rendered. So now when we would play that, we get a cross dissolve. Now if you want to modify that cross dissolve, I can go into motion back here, video. And technically, I should be able to go in here and find my cross dissolve, but it's not showing up. There we go. Double click on that cross dissolve and the cross dissolve, and it tells me how much I have on either side. Now you can actually stretch it and move it at this point if you want the cross dissolve to be longer than its standard 10 seconds. You can take that and modify it here. If I were to bring in, and I'll show you how to import from the camera at this point. So file, so anything that's on your desktop or on your hard drive, if you've taken clips off your camera and put them in a folder, then it's just import files or folder would go that way. But say I need to bring it in from my camera. So my camera's connected. This one just connects with a USB. As I say, this one was kind of annoying because it's an AVC HD widescreen format, and it needed this particular software. So if I'm going to, I'm not importing, I am not capturing. Capturing is what you do from a tape. So if you've got video tape, you're capturing. Here I'm doing log and transfer. So what this is doing is now it's working and thinking, okay, let's see what all she has on the camera that we might want to import. It also tells me down here that the total free space on my computer is 45.9 gigabytes, just in case I was thinking I might run out. So this is all of the clips that are on my camera from the beginning of time, because it's got a 245 gigabyte drive, and I'm too nervous to take anything off. So, so say we wanted to do that one, some old pasta projects, clip 54. I would take the clip and I would add the selection to the queue. And it's just showing me down there that it's adding it. And I can go pick something else. There's somebody doing a smoke box. We'll just, put one of those down and add it to the queue. So these are on my camera in a really bizarre format called .mts, which I have no idea what it means, except it's really annoying. So when I transfer these to Premiere, I actually drag them in as clips. I don't have to do this particular exercise because Premiere is designed better to take all different kinds of formats. In theory, it's much faster to be doing this, to be taking things in as clips, rather than if you're taking something from a videotape in, it only goes in as fast as the videotape runs. So there are decks up in the lab up there that if you do have a videotape, you can pull it in that way. And it will also tell you the length of the clip. It's a good idea when you get your clips or your media in that little pane that has all of your data in it, that you might want to rename them so that they make a bit of sense, unless you can remember that, well, that was, clip this and that. So we'll quit that. And at this point, you can see we've got clip 54 and clip 107 in there. So if I take, and if I want to make, yeah, okay, I'll just pull this down. So if I bring clip 54 in here, I'm going to snap it. You can see automatically that it breaks out into its audio, 2 tracks, and its video. And then if I bring clip 107 in here, it's broken out into its audio and its video. So the two of them are just simply sitting back to back at this point. And the larger they are, it's kind of good if you can work them large, because then there'll be a little tiny picture on the timeline, which makes it easier to be able to tell what it is that you've got. The other thing too would be if you had this where you wanted, and you wanted to bring in some other stuff on top of it, you can lock these. So if I lock that, I lock that, I lock that, and I bring a picture in on top, even if I have, it can't break it apart because it's locked. So even if I have the push to the side icon showing, it can't mess it up. So I try to do this if I'm layering up, particularly as soon as all of the stuff drops off my screen, because I've got a lot of stuff going on. I want to make sure that anything that I'm finished with, I've locked down, so that I don't inadvertently go back and find that I've dropped some things in and everything's slid across. It's also a good argument for saving this as a sequence, and the sequence exists up here, and starting a new sequence and dropping one into the other. So let's take that off there. Let's unlock these. And I will show you how to add a transition to this, because if I will show you a cross dissolve, if I just try to put a cross dissolve on here, there's an X. You see that little X? It says, can't do that. It won't let me do it. So what I have to do is take one of these tools here. Now there's some interesting tools here. This one here, that one, is called a ripple tool. And what I do with the ripple tool, maybe I had to have this selected first. There we go. See, the ripple tool is finally has its little thing facing that way. I click on that. Oops, there we go. Click on that. And I'm going to type -15. You see the little -15 going up in there? That means that I have said that I'm going to sacrifice 15 frames of that video clip. And then I hit return. You see it kind of shrunk? Then I'm going to take that ripple clip and I'm going to go on this side and I'm going to click it, and you'll see those little funny lines there. I'm going to type +15, enter. Now, when I bring the cross dissolve down, it works. But if you don't do that, it won't work. If you want to have a really long transition, if you want that transition to be, if you figure we've got 30 frames a second, so if I trimmed 15, then I've taken a half a second from either side. So my transition is a full second, which really isn't that long. If you want a really long, drawn-out transition, you would make that longer. When you go into she had some of these ones saved, I think, yesterday. Let's see. I don't know. My data didn't save on this one.